What's up, y'all? It's Quinn and Steven. I'm back with another YouTube video, this time coming at you with Volume 4 of Quinn and Steve's Wild World of Sports. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and hop into the NFL action, of course, starting with last night's game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions, which is a very key game in the playoff race for the NFC. And the Lions pretty much pulled away with the 44-30 victory. Really, they had the lead from Jump Street in that game. The Cowboys in the first half only could muster a couple field goals. And the Lions really just kept their foot on the gas, especially with the running game. That was really key and efficient last night. Dallas did make us come back in the second half, kind of like they've been doing the past couple of games. This game, the Eagles game, a few others, but just a little bit too late at the end of the day. The defense has been showing up the past couple of games. The second half of the Philly game, and they had some moments in the Kansas City game, even though Patrick Mahomes had a good game, but kind of caught with them a little bit against Detroit. And also in that game, CeeDee Lamb was having a good game, up until his concussion, 6 catches for over 100 yards. But yes, in that third quarter, he had a pretty bad concussion. He seized up. He almost kind of seized up a little bit. The way he kind of froze up, his body locked up, it was really scary stuff to see. So we'll see if he's going to be available for the next game. Fortunately, this is a Thursday game. The next game is going to be next Sunday, so they get about a 10-day break in between games. Maybe that'll be enough time for him to come back. But it's certainly something the Cowboys are going to need, because now with this loss, that puts him at 6-1, which kind of puts him behind the 8 ball of making the playoffs, especially in that wild card spot. Because you look at Seattle, they're 9-3, the Packers are 8-3-1, and the 49ers are 9-4. You got like 3 teams in the NFC West with 9 wins right now. So honestly, it's looking more and more like the division may be the way to go if you're trying to get into the playoffs. You have the Eagles right now at 8-4, but obviously they're reeling right now, as we're all seeing, with last week's loss to the Bears, and of course the loss to the Cowboys the Sunday right before that. So that's gonna have to be the way to go if they want to win this division, and they're pretty much gonna have to win out at this point. Fortunately, the schedule is pretty favorable as it stands right now. You look at, they got the Vikings on Sunday Night Football. They have the Chargers, and I don't think the Chargers are going to have Justin Herbert back. That's going to be huge if he's not back. That's going to give them a much better chance to win the game, because that's their best player. And then, they have the Commanders on Christmas, on Netflix, and then they close with the Giants to start the new year. So they got a pretty good chance to run the table. We'll see if that happens. But I could say last night's result as a Cowboys fan, it was kind of disappointing, but that was the best team that we were going to play the rest of the way this year. So, okay, a loss to them, I can see that, even though it's a key loss, obviously, like I said, in that playoff race. But, they're still exceeding my expectations, the Cowboys are this year, so I won't be that bummed if they miss the playoffs. I think right now with the moves that they made, obviously with the George Pickens move, and then releasing Micah, and then now getting Quentin Williams in that last trade, also getting Kenny Clark in the Micah trade, I think they're really making moves for next year, especially with those 2 draft picks. I think that's what's kind of letting them pin their ears back, so to speak, and just letting them go for the playoffs, or just go try to get the best result possible, because they know in the end they're going to have those 2 draft picks to lean on in the end. And, you look at the playoff race and the rest of the NFC right there, and obviously, like I said, you got the 3 teams in the NFC West. They all got 9 wins, the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers. Really, other than Tampa Bay in that NFC race, and even there, it's nip and tuck with them. They're only a half a game ahead of Carolina. You look at the 8 wins, obviously, with the Eagles, and obviously the 3 9-win teams in the South, and also the Packers are 8-3-1. It's going to be really tough. Even with Detroit's win yesterday, it's going to be really tough for them to kind of crack that code and get into that top 7 of the playoff race. It's going to be a lot of, 11, 12-win, 13-win teams in the NFC. And they clearly look like the Spirit Conference right now, in my mind. Then you flip it over to the AFC. That's a lot more unpredictable. Now, yes, they do have the 2 teams with the best records in the league right now, that being the Patriots at 11-2, the Broncos are 10-2, or 10-3, one of those 2. But those are unproven teams, so we're just gonna have to kind of see how things go for them come playoff time. But they look to be rolling to their division title at least, and one of them's gonna get that bye. Of course, the other's gonna get the 2 seed. Then the rest of the AFC, I mean, who knows? Right now, the Jaguars are leading the South. The Colts have kind of fallen apart a little bit. I think it's kind of that mid-season, late-season swoon a little bit. They're gonna have to pick it up and get it together. They're in the wild card race right now, but obviously it's better to host a wild card game, winning the division, than it is to be the wild card team. So, and they're in a close race. They got the Jaguars ahead of them, and also the Texans are right behind them at 7-5. So that's going to be a tough race at AFC South. And then, you look at the West, the Chargers have a spot. The Bills, I think, are in the 7th spot right now. Very surprising. And then the AFC North, who knows with them? Right now, it's the Ravens. They're 6-6. The Steelers are kind of cracking and falling by the wayside, because they're just an older team. The Bengals are still in it. Joe Burrow came back, and he dominated the Ravens on Thanksgiving. I think they're only 2 back, I believe, right now, the Ravens. Do not count out the Cincinnati Bengals. They're going to be very, very dangerous if they get into the playoffs just off of their offensive prowess alone. But we'll have to see. And then, of course, you got the however many time defending AFC champions, the Chiefs. They are in danger of missing the playoffs. They're 2 back right now of that last spot. Goodness, we might see a playoff without the Chiefs for the first time in a while. All right, so now we got to get into what in the world is going on in the wacky world of college football. We got conference championship games coming up this week. Of course, you have the Big 12, BYU and Texas Tech, the SEC, Georgia and Alabama, wherever in the world is going on with the ACCs. And now it's Virginia and Duke, who's 7-5. Somehow they managed to slip into the championship game over there. And of course, the Big 10, you got the top 2 teams in the country, Indiana and Ohio State, going at it. So some pretty good games on Saturday, and obviously a lot of games with playoff implications. And even with the mid-majors like the American, you got North Texas Tulane, James Madison, I believe they're in the Sun Belt. They're going up against Troy. UNLV and Boise State in the Mountain West. One of those teams pretty much is guaranteed to get in, probably the winner of the American, but there could be a lot of chaos, a lot of chaos if Duke were to somehow upset Virginia, because they're 7-5. They win that game, they'll be 8-5. They'd be ACC champions technically, but that's not going to be good enough to get into the playoff, I'm pretty sure. So in that case, they're saying there may be 2 of the mid-major teams. So let's say James Madison wins, and then whoever wins the American, those are going to be the 2 teams that get in. Which is crazy. If James Madison were to lose, then it might be UNLV if they win at 11-2. Which is crazy, and it's probably, if that happens, that's going to cause, like I said, a lot of chaos, a lot of anarchy, and it's going to cause a lot of discussion in the offseason and a lot of change to the rules, because I'm not sure how 2 mid-major teams can get in, or a group of 5 teams can get in over a Miami or a Texas or maybe a Notre Dame. They may get left out, especially if BYU loses. Miami and Notre Dame might be paired next to each other. Obviously, week 1, Miami beat Notre Dame. And then they have other arguments as well. They played some of the same opponents, beat them worse, have a better defense, and this and that and the third. So one of those teams may be left out in the cold. And the question is why? You got a 12-team playoff. You need the 12 best teams in there. I know you want to give love to the mid-majors and this and that and the third, but if they earn it, sure, go ahead and let them have it. Just like Boise State last year, they had, I think they were, the 3 seed or something like that. So, sure, in that case, let them have it. But otherwise, just kind of doing the fans the disservice and the players of the bigger schools a disservice, because it's almost like you're punishing them because they went to a bigger school. That doesn't make sense. But don't get it twisted. It makes for really, really good discussion on YouTube and on podcasts and platforms like that. So, hey, give me the wild stuff. I want chaos. I want anarchy. Go ahead and let Duke go out there in Charlotte and beat Virginia on Saturday night and watch the discussions get flipped upside down as far as what's going to happen with this playoff. Now, as far as the Heisman Trophy race is concerned, we're finally starting to get some coverage on it nationally as far as that goes. It looks like it's Fernando Mendoza of Indiana, as I said in the last video, who's still the front runner. we'll see how he performs against Ohio State, because Indiana hasn't really been tested in a minute like that, even in the conference. This obviously by far would be the best team they play. So they kind of want to probably see the voters, how he looks against them. Even if they lose, they lose and they're competitive and Mendoza has a good game, then the trophy's probably as good as his. If not, you got Julian Sayin, the quarterback at Ohio State. If he comes out and has a monster game and Ohio State wins the Big Ten, which they haven't done since, I think, 2020, hey, cap off an undefeated season. You're the quarterback of that team. Usually those guys tend to win the Heisman. If not, they may finish second or third. But more often than not, they're the favorites. So if he comes out and has a great game, then he can be the front runner. If neither one of them, if they both kind of have stinkers and it's like a low-scoring game, maybe Jeremiah Love of Notre Dame could sneak in. Like I said, you got the linebacker from Texas Tech. I think he's played a little bit of offense too, so he can get in the race. Maybe Jeremiah Smith, Julian Sayin's receiver at Ohio State, rather. Of course, he's got all the hype around him already, and he's had a really good season to boot, so he could sneak in and get that as well. But it looks to be Mendoza's to lose as of right now. We're just gonna have to see how things progress on Saturday and see the results of those. And one more point about the playoff situation and things like that, especially if a Duke wins the ACC on Saturday. I think somebody was mentioning, I believe on X, about how there should be like a playoff, basically a playoff of like the at-large teams that are kind of fighting for those last couple of spots. Hey, maybe have like a play-in game. Maybe have Miami play Texas or Vanderbilt play Notre Dame or something like that. And if you get that spot, you're in. Or maybe like the Group of 5 school. Hey, here's your chance to prove it. Congratulations, you won your conference, but if you want to get into the playoff, you got to beat one of these teams that's on the bubble. If you beat them, absolutely, no doubt, you deserve to get in. I think, especially if Duke wins, that's probably coming down the pipe, because there's, like I said, it's just not going to be a lot of happy people talking about, hey, how we got two Group of 5 schools in the playoff over teams in major conferences that won 10 games or won 9 games like Texas did, but they beat Texas A&M and Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, and they have that strong resume and they deserve to be in. But yet you're gonna reward the smaller guy, like a James Madison, like a North Texas. As much as we like to see that stuff, we don't want to see it at the expense of schools like in Miami and Texas and Notre Dame, this and that. So not going to be a lot of happy people discussing that if Duke wins. But again, I kind of want to see it, just for anarchy's sake. All right, guys, now we're going to flip it over to the NBA. We'll start with a great result last night, at least for my team, the Lakers, as they beat the surprising Toronto Raptors, a really good team out of the East, at the buzzer, 123-120. LeBron James, he had that historic streak of 10 consecutive games with at least 10 points. That was broken last night. He had 8 points, and he had a chance to get 10 points, but he chose to, instead of driving the lane and getting the easy bucket, to maybe tie the game or maybe still put the Lakers up 2 and win it. He decided to kick it in the corner to Rui Hachimura. Hachimura nailed the 3 as time expired, and Lakers walk away with a much-needed victory, an impressive victory over a really good team. It's been an interesting dynamic seeing how they're handling LeBron coming back. I am of the belief he's still not 100%. And at this point, with all the miles that he has, and he's 40 years old, about to be 41 later this month, what does 100% even look like anymore for him, right? So, and obviously with that sciatica, that's a very, very tricky thing because it's a nerve injury. So that's something that can kind of flare up and this and that, but I don't think he's 100%, but he's still good to pass, and he's still good to, get up and down the floor. It doesn't look to be bothering him too much as far as shooting and passing. I don't see him grimacing a whole lot, so there's that. But like I said, it's a tricky thing. And obviously, it's also getting used to his new teammates. And even some of the older ones that have kind of stepped it up. Obviously, you look at Austin Reeves, and last night he was terrific. He's been terrific all year. He had 44 points last night. Luka is Luka, and he's the guy that's going to need the ball. Austin Reeves, now with his improved play, he's going to need the ball in his hands a lot more. And DeAndre Ayton's playing well. Hachimura's played well. They got some good production off the bench too. So it's going to be interesting as the season prolongs to see this dynamic that LeBron has with the team, because there's been some rifts, obviously, with him having that whole thing with the Suns the other night, earlier this week, where he was talking to Dylan Brooks and he was talking to the bench and this and that, and JJ Redick had to get his attention, say, hey, LeBron, get over here, and stuff like that. That's not really a good look at all, because it kind of shows that he's a bit disengaged, and there's all these rumors that he's kind of fuming with the Lakers management about his contract and kind of how he's being treated. Maybe he feels like they're kind of taking that one hand and slowly kind of pushing him out the door. Like, I mean, if you want to come back, you can, but you don't have to come. But if you don't want to come back after next year, I mean, we kind of got our guys. So, thanks for everything. We'll see how that goes after the year. We'll just have to see, because I know they're pondering retirement. They're saying they're pondering retirement with LeBron. But knowing LeBron, like we've seen him over the past couple of decades, he does like the attention, and I think he does want that farewell tour. And I don't know if he's going to get it in LA. And let me address this whole thing that Paul Pierce and I believe it was Chandler Parsons, they had to say on their podcast earlier this week about how Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has more of a bag than Michael Jordan did. Well, of course, I mean, that's part of the evolution of the game. And I'm guessing when they say bag, they're talking about the handles and this and that, all the fancier moves and that sort of thing. Well, of course, I mean, look, in the 80s and the 90s, a lot of the moves that they were doing now weren't invented back then. And if they were, they weren't really allowed back then. They had to play more into the systems back then. Obviously, with the Bulls, they had the triangle and this and that and the third. So it really wasn't a whole lot of over dribbling and things of that nature. So they weren't really allowed to do those sorts of things. And back then, they had a different mentality as far as scoring goes. Obviously, they weren't looking for the three ball as much. It was more mid-range and attack the rim, which, to be fair, Shai does have that, more of that style. He really doesn't shoot a whole lot of threes. He's shooting a few more this year, but not really compared to the rest of the league, especially on the guards. But Michael Jordan's bag was the fadeaways, right? The mid-range moves, the fakes he would do, and then obviously he would take a couple dribbles and get to the rim. And that was kind of everybody's style back then. It wasn't a whole lot of over dribbling, like I said before, because coaches just wouldn't allow that. You took bad shots, 35, 40-foot three-point shots. Those are considered bad shots. They would take you out of the game for that, even if you made it. So it was a different time. It was, it was a different era, different game. So Michael Jordan had a bag, but his bag was different. So I think when you say someone has a bag, I just think people got to clarify what it actually is that they're talking about when they say bag. Because probably talking about dribble, and of course they didn't do that back then. All right, and then looking at the rest of the league, in the East, Detroit still doing their thing, still in first place. Like I said, Toronto's doing their thing as well. They're in second place. And then you got, the Knicks, like I said in the last video, Knicks and Cavs still kind of treading water, but, they have some injuries that they're dealing with and this and that and the third. And I think they're just trying to hang on to the playoffs. If they can get a top 4 seed, I think with what they've done the past couple of years and the experience they've gotten in the playoffs, I think they're trying to lean on that to propel them, later on in April and May and June. In the East, because like I said, even with the Pistons hot start, they just made the playoffs last year, and 2 years before that, they were like one of the worst teams in the league, if not the worst team. So it's not a team with a ton of playoff experience, even though they played well in the playoffs last year in the first round, considering their experience levels and things like that. And they're also a very, very good start, like I said, this year. It's just, there's really no clear-cut favorite in the East. It's kind of like with the AFC in football. It's kind of the same thing with the Eastern Conference. So, but we kind of knew that going in. And then, of course, in the West, like I said, the Lakers are exceeding my expectations. I didn't think they were going to be this good this year. But they look great, especially on offense. Denver's doing what they do. Houston's doing what I thought they would do. San Antonio's still holding on without Wemby. He's still going to be out a couple more weeks and this and that. But like I said, they got, all those other draft picks, and De'Aaron Fox, he's playing well. So they look to hold on to that top spot. And then you got Minnesota below them. A couple teams doing all right. Like Phoenix is doing pretty good this year, a lot better than I thought they'd be. And then the Warriors kind of treading water. But the team you got to talk about is Oklahoma City, man. I'm saying it, I feel like I'm saying it every video now, but my goodness. They're 21-1. They won 13 games in a row. Their winning percentage is 95.5%. That is unbelievable. They just got Jalen Williams back recently, so he's kind of working his way back into the fold. He's not lighting up yet, but he's kind of working his way back up to that. But Chet Holmgren is really, he's probably gonna be their third All-Star this year, because I think Jalen's gonna play in enough games to get that. And when you got a team with that record, you have to give him 3 All-Stars, at least 3. So Chet, he's been playing well. Good to see him healthy. And then Shai's doing what Shai does. It was the same thing last year. He's so consistent with his scoring. Like, it'll be, you know, one game will be 32, 7, and 8. Then the next game will be 35, 9, and 8. You know, they'll have 37, then go back to 30. Like, he's such a consistent 30-point per game scorer. I don't know if I've seen that, because usually 30-point scores are more volatile. They'll score 47 one game, then they'll score like 18 the next game, then they'll score 45, then they'll do 19. Like, he's so consistent. He's steady, Eddie. So impressive to see. This team, man, they could break the all-time record, which they are on pace to do, that 73-9 record that the Warriors had in 2016. They could do that, go back-to-back, and then, guys, they got 2 top 10 picks in this upcoming draft. This draft class that, by the way, a lot of people are raving about so far. They got 2 of those because they have Clippers first-round pick from, obviously, the Paul George trade. And then I believe they have the Jazz's first-round draft pick as well. Those are 2 of the worst teams in the West right now. Utah thinks in 11th or 12th, but the Clippers are really struggling, which I'll get to them in a minute. But wow, Oklahoma City, they're in a space that, as a team, that we haven't seen probably since the Celtics, when they had like number 2 overall pick in '86, and unfortunately got Len Bias, who obviously passed a couple days later. Or I would say the Lakers in '82, when they win the championship with Magic and Kareem and Pat Riley now as the head coach, and then they go and get James Worthy. They say, hey, we can get Dominique Wilkins or James Worthy. That's kind of the position of that Oklahoma City is in. That's unbelievable. Sam Presti, they win that championship this year, I say put them in the Hall of Fame now. Last point I want to make before I get on out here. I know y'all heard about the news of the Clippers dumping Chris Paul. That's cold. That's cold. The man, he already said he's on his retirement tour. He just want to come back and have that feel-good last season. We know how Chris Paul is as a player. He's you know, he's going to get in players' faces. He's going to get in coaches' faces and hold everybody accountable. And the Clippers are wildly underachieving this year. Nobody thought they would be this bad. And, you know, he may be the one that's what's the reason. You know, maybe Kawhi's not saying enough. Maybe James Harden's not saying enough. Sometimes your best players aren't your most vocal guys. But don't take that on Chris Paul. I mean, obviously he hasn't played that much this year. He hasn't played that well. But the man says his last year. He's 40 years old. It's his 20th season or 21st season. He's a point guard at that. So, yes, he's on his last legs. Obviously, he announced his retirement tour. I just don't know what y'all accomplished by cutting him. Like, what did that really accomplish? Because you're not getting more playing time for anyone else. Because, like I said, he's not really even playing that much. I just don't know what they're trying to accomplish with that. But maybe behind the scenes, it was just that bad where they just had to say, you know what? It's not even worth finishing the season. You gotta go. So hopefully you can catch on with somebody else and at least finish out the rest of that retirement tour. I don't know. It'd be funny if he catches on with a team like Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City has a lot of love for Chris Paul, so who knows? But I don't know if they have enough space for him because they didn't have enough space for Russell Westbrook. So there's that. But hopefully he catches on with somebody, finishes out the retirement tour, and finishes out his career in a dignified way, because this is a very, very sour note to end your career on. But all right, guys, that's going to do it for the 4th installment of Cool Hand Steve's Wild World of Sports. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you made it to the end of this video, you are a real one. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. As always, take care of yourselves and each other. Like, share, comment, subscribe on these topics. Let me know what y'all think about any of them. Let me know what other videos you want me to talk about, what other topics you want me to talk about, and this and that. So with that, Cool and Steve signing out. Peace.